Welcome to the oral argument for Crow Nation versus Blue Cloud Enterprise before the Appeals Court of the Crow Nation. This video focuses on tribal jurisdiction and the enforceability of forum selection clauses in commercial contracts. This video will cover three main areas: tribal sovereignty, contract law, and tribal jurisdiction, exploring the authority of tribal courts over internal affairs and external partnerships. The core conflict asserts the Crow Nation's jurisdictional authority over non-member Blue Cloud based on a consensual commercial contract. The contractual dispute centers on whether the forum selection clause is an enforceable sovereign right or an adhesion contract. The appellant is the Crow Nation, a sovereign tribal nation operating the Apsaluk Heritage Resort. The respondent is Blue Cloud Enterprise, a non-tribal corporation challenging tribal jurisdiction over digital asset management disputes. The contract involves the Apsaluk Heritage Resort, located on tribal trust land, and Blue Cloud Enterprise's management of critical digital infrastructure and marketing. The key issue relates to the management of tribal digital assets and data privacy protocols. The jurisdictional conflict was triggered by an alleged data privacy violation, where Blue Cloud breached protocols, compromising sensitive tribal information. The tribe asserts that the mishandling of these digital assets led to the contract's termination. Blue Cloud initially challenged jurisdiction in federal district court, but was met with tribal exhaustion dismissal. The federal court deferred to tribal exhaustion, requiring remedies to be pursued in tribal court first. The Crow Tribal Trial Court ruled for Blue Cloud, holding that the tribe lacked jurisdiction. The legal basis cited jurisdictional failure under Montana law and invalidated the forum selection clause as an, quote, adhesion contract. The Crow Nation is appealing based on two main issues. First, the trial court allegedly misapplied the Montana rule exceptions. Second, the tribe seeks to validate the forum selection clause as a legitimate exercise of tribal sovereignty. The first point of error is that the Montana presumption was misapplied. The presumption against tribal jurisdiction does not apply to consensual commercial relationships, where voluntary entry into tribal territory creates a jurisdictional foundation. Supporting argument 1 is the consensual exception within the Montana framework. Blue Cloud voluntarily submitted to tribal authority by signing a high-stakes management agreement, availing itself of tribal commerce. Supporting argument 2 is based on the Williams v. Lee Foundation precedent. Tribal sovereignty is strongest when non-members voluntarily enter tribal lands for business, as Blue Cloud did by engaging with the tribe on its own territory. Supporting argument 3 references Marion v. Jicarilla Apache Tribe. Tribes retain the inherent power to contract and, consequently, the inherent power to enforce those contracts within tribal jurisdiction. Blue Cloud cannot accept benefits while rejecting the tribe's enforcement venue. The second point of error challenges the finding that the forum selection clause was an adhesion contract. Blue Cloud, a sophisticated corporation represented by counsel, negotiated the clause alongside material terms, reflecting a deliberate commercial decision. Supporting argument 5 uses the National Farmers Union versus Crow Tribe precedent. Federal courts must defer to tribal court jurisdiction under the doctrine of tribal exhaustion. The trial court failed to give appropriate deference to the Crow Tribe's sovereign interest in adjudicating disputes on its own land. The respondent's argument claims digital assets exist outside traditional boundaries, meaning tribal authority does not extend to intangible digital commerce performed off-reservation. The respondent also claims the contract was an inflexible adhesion agreement, lacking the meaningful negotiation required for a consensual sovereign relationship. Furthermore, the Montana presumption applies. The default legal presumption for non-members is against tribal jurisdiction, and the tribe failed to prove a catastrophic threat to political or economic security. The appellant's core theory is that consent to contract equals consent to tribal jurisdiction. Voluntarily executing a commercial agreement within sovereign territory constitutes submission to that sovereign's legal authority. The respondent's core theory counters that digital commerce falls outside tribal authority. The intangible nature of digital transactions occurs in a borderless electronic space, avoiding the tribe's physical sovereign territory.